A lot of people are really mad at PokeRev right now because he's used generative AI to create a thumbnail for one of his recent YouTube videos. And while I think a lot of those criticisms are valid, and I do agree with them for the most part, I think it opens the door to a greater discussion about generative AI in general, specifically in the Pokemon TCG collecting space. Now, this is the kind of stuff that I talk about over at twitch.tv/OKJLUV during live streams, and I kind of avoid putting on the main OKJLUV channel, so I'm putting them here in the future moving forward. So if you like that stuff, go follow at Twitch and subscribe here. But the core of today's video. So if you head to Rev's channel and you look at his third latest video, Pitch Black is Pokemon's New Nightmare, you'll see the thumbnail has a lot of Gen AI tales. Granted, the rest of his thumbnails, or I should say a lot of the thumbnails from the last 2 to 6 months, have a lot of Gen AI tales too. Some more so than others, with pictures like this being a Chaos Rising ETB, but obviously not a Chaos Rising ETB. It's that weird uncanny valley awkwardness of the image. However, the most outlandish, or the one that sticks out like dog's balls, is this one here. Zooming in on it, and I don't think you should really zoom in on YouTube thumbnails in general because a lot of weird features stick out, but zooming in on it, you can see the pitch black text. It uses that same Gen AI text that I'm seeing more and more across rip and shippers, YouTubers, LGSs making pamphlets. It all seems to be the same font type across all of them. And it needlessly replaces the pitch black logo, but I guess it is clearer text for what the set is called. So it's probably why he opted to use it. Stuff like the back of the Pokemon cards, you know, it looks like the Pokemon logo, but it's gibberish when you look at it closely. The card itself is stretched and I want to say softened, which I really dislike Pokemon card illustrations getting fed through Gen AI in general, especially in this instance as well. What can you do? And then Rev himself looks like he's been rolling around in a pit of maggots because he's got all these weird little awkward texture features around his fingers, and his expression is very heightened. It's ugly. It makes you feel like it gives you the ick. It's awkward. And if you're Gen AI averse, it's a big reason to click off, but it seems to be working. And I think that's probably why Rev is still using the thumbnails in general, because even though they are quite clearly using Gen AI and they aren't real situations, the videos are still getting views, which is kind of part of a broader topic that I'll touch on a little bit more as the video goes on. But this specific thumbnail caught a lot of heat on Twitter, where this person reposted it, I'd say 2 days ago now, and it's got 1.3 mil views, 8K likes, and 300 reposts. Ooh, why would anyone ever watch this? Now, Rev gets dogpiled a lot on Twitter, but you wouldn't know that unless you go on Twitter. I feel like there's different groups of people hovering over different platforms. He did, granted, get a lot of criticism on this video. This is the comment section for the video in question when the vid came out, with a lot of people at the time saying, bro, the AI was not needed. He has done so many, you know, cool man, bought a booster. Okay, it's random. Because like a lot of the people in watching these videos are just kids. So you're going to see like a lot of gibberish in the comment section, but like AI slot, wrap it up. The AI thumbnail, that crappy thumbnail, buddy, make your own thumbnail. You know, a lot of people in the comment section expressing how much they do not like the AI thumbnails, but it's at odds with the video's reception in general, because even though people don't like the thumbnail and have expressed how much they don't like it, the video still has 353,000 views. Anyway, I digress. Over on Twitter, dude's getting dogpiled, and Rev just gets dogpiled a lot on Twitter, whether it's because of the type of content that he makes, which is like fast food kind of slop content, where it's just, you know, dash through the packs as quickly as possible, as many as possible, as early as possible, and be as exaggerated and excited as possible to generate hype. Adults kind of click off of that stuff and don't really like it these days. Or whether you've got issues with Rev because of the PokeRev packs and the mystery packs, because they basically are promoting and glorifying gambling to children. Like I said, a large majority of Rev's audience is just children. Spend 2 seconds in the comment sections and you'll figure that one out for yourself. Another reason why people will dogpile on him, all of those. And again, him opening up a lot of packs and products at or before release date makes it look like he is, you know, taking away products from genuine collectors because he's getting so much of it and he's getting it early. People can't even find stuff on the shelves at Walmart. It's just general bad vibes and it doesn't look good. For all of those reasons, Rev will often, I'd say every, you know, few months or so, get dogpiled on Twitter. This user here, I already spoke on this man once, but most of y'all already know my opinion. In the past, brigaded, I want to say, or engagement farmed off of something that Rev did. They deleted the tweet, but if you flick through the history of it, a lot of the replies are still there. So he's a bit of a scapegoat. Whether you think that's right or wrong, up for debate. I think the issue with Rev, right, is that he never turned on the camera and made YouTube videos to be a pillar of the community and like an ambassador of the space. From day dot, it was never what his channel was about 6 years ago. You know, some of these videos are pre-2020. I feel like there were videos on this channel pre-2020 that have been delisted, but memory doesn't serve me too well. But from the day that the dude started creating and uploading videos, it was always just about opening as many packs as possible, finding the rarest cards, opening vintage boxes. And if you know a lot about Rev, because you know you've been in the space pre-2020 and you knew that he was like going out and buying collections and stuff, you know that he does genuinely like collecting Pokemon cards, whether he's a genuine fan of the franchise and Pokemon and in general, like the characters, the stories, the themes, or whether he just likes the idea of collecting things, which who am I to judge? You know, people just like to collect things for the sake of collecting things. It's just a human habit that a lot of people really do. Rev liked collecting rare things and finding them, and he bought up a lot of old collections, and it's why his collection is as deep as it is, and it's why his channel is where it is today. He never went live and started making videos to be like a member of the community and a spokesperson of the community and an example for other creators. He was just a guy that got really popular, blew up, and now makes videos every other day because it's his job. You know, he does this to pay the bills. I don't think he has another job outside of this. I don't think he could just switch this off and move into another field tomorrow. For him now, it's a means to an end, which is why it's kind of weird and difficult to discuss Rev when situations like this occur where they're using Gen AI. Like I said, I don't necessarily think he's a bad person, but I don't want this to come across as being a PokeRev apologist. In that same breath, I don't want this to come across as being a generative AI apologist either. I don't use it. I don't condone it. I never have, and I never will. All my image editing and my YouTube thumbnail creation, I do it myself. Sometimes when Blendy, who edits a lot of the videos on the app's channel and has edited before, uses it, I'm like, dude, why are you using that? Take it out. We can't use it. He'll comment and he'll tell you that it happens all the time and he gets pissed off and it makes more work for him. But I do believe in the importance of creating things yourself. It's a very deep topic. I'll continue to talk about it as the video goes on. But like I said, I don't think Rev is necessarily a bad person who comes on here with bad intentions. However, by Rev using Gen AI to create these thumbnails and them being accepted by his audience, the process, right, is receiving a positive, like he's receiving a positive feedback loop. I'm speeding up the time it takes for me to create a video. I don't have to pay an editor or a thumbnail creator, and people are still watching the videos and they like them. Therefore, I can continue going down this road. I think that's where it starts and it ends with Rev. That's why I said I don't think he's necessarily a bad person. I just don't think he cares or notices because the dude's got a family. He's got 4 kids. He's got a wife. He's trying to just come in, clock in, make the video, get it done as quickly as possible and go back to being a family man. We all are. If you have kids, I mean, I got a little fella now. He's just recently turned 2. I try to spend as little time as possible working, but doing what I have to so I can go and spend time with him because I don't like being away from him. Now, if I had that 4 times, I'd be like, damn, I want to get out of here as quickly as possible. However, and I don't want this to come across as like holier than thou, I'm not going to make the trade-off of like doing something that I don't fundamentally agree with, which is using Gen AI in order to speed up and, you know, save time and give myself more time to spend with my kid. Because I don't agree with Gen AI, I don't like the precedent that it sets, and I don't like the economy and playing field that it creates for creators in general. And we'll dive into that. However, the thing with Rev is because he has gotten so popular and he has become, through whether he likes it or not, right, a pillar of the community, there is this expectation now upon him to act in that manner and set an example for others because other people look up to him. Why do I say that? Well, a lot of kids watch his channel. Like majority of the comments in his YouTube video come from children. Okay. And on top of that, a lot of people who aspire to be like Rev and create a channel, they look at his channel and the blueprint of it and they say, well, if Rev's doing this, right, and these thumbnails are working, I just copy the Rev model. So if Gen AI is working for Rev, and the views don't seem to be going down. They seem to be going up, especially if you compare videos from, since this advent of Gen AI on his channel. A lot of these don't look real, not a scam. This one here in particular, he just looks weird, right? But you compare that to this period and era here where he wasn't, which is more in line with his traditional thumbnail style, right? The views weren't there. And this is like 8 months ago, 9 months ago. Like, yeah, okay, some of them there are like 1 mil views on this one, 620 on that one. Yeah, every now and then there'd be a lot of views, but the average seemed to be, 100,000, 220,000, right? And this is in the Pokemon peak. This is end of 2025. So Pokemon is booming and continuing to grow in popularity. But when he shifted to this AI style, right, which seems to be around here, this video here got 983,000 views. And it's just, his head's turning in a weird way. It's just weird. I don't even think he really used Gen AI too much in this one. If anything, it's like the glyphs on the box and maybe the background is generated. But for the most part, pretty straightforward. But then he goes back to like a typical style here with this Mega Start Deck 100 opening, and it's back to 177,000 views. But then you go back to the AI, or what looks like the AI style, and they pick up again, 280,000, 875,000. This one was a bit of a flop, 99. And I say that in the context of his channel. It's not a diss. Anything over 100K views, anything over 50K views is really good, right? But when you got 3 million plus subs, you want to be getting at least 200 to 300,000 views per vid, 500,000 views. So as he's started to see success and more views with this thumbnail style, he's obviously leaned into it a little bit more. So again, because I don't want this to come across as brigading. I liked the idea of making a video about this to talk about Gen AI in general, but also the importance and the responsibility that you have as a creator in this space as you get bigger and bigger. Because whether you like it or not, there is now an expectation upon you, Rev, if you're watching this, right, to set an example for everybody else out there. Whether you gauge or decide Rev is a good or a bad person after this is based on his response to it. Because I don't know Rev that well, but I know him to an extent. We've met, been to his house, we made a video together, we speak on and off, right? He's a nice guy. I get the vibe from him that he's just a dude and he's kind of like obtuse, okay? And I don't think he's terminally online. I don't think he goes on Twitter and Instagram, and I don't think he sees on Reddit how much people dislike Gen AI. I don't think he looks at his comment section too much. I think he's kind of switched off. Like I said, come in, film the video, clock off. And because of that, he's not in tune to how his audience feels and how people perceive him online until something happens, right? So that's why I say, and again, for like the 7th time, and you're going to be like, he's a Rev apologist. No, bear with me. That I don't think he is inherently a malicious or bad person. Whether or not you gauge or decide whether he is after this is dependent on his response. Because by now there's no doubt that he is aware of the situation. He's aware of the negative reception to him using Gen AI for his thumbnails. How he acts after this will define him, in my opinion. If in the next 5 or 6 videos you see him using Gen AI again for all the thumbnails, I personally will say, you know what, dude, that's kind of weak and I expected better of you. I'm not going to sit here and be like, he's the devil, he's a horrible person. Axie, who's worked with Rev a lot in the past, and there's like a tweet here, it's somewhere here, what did he do wrong? Acting like he did something horrible. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, all he did was use Gen AI. It didn't hurt anybody. I will dive into it and I will discuss why there are negative components to it and impacts to it, but it's just Pokemon cards at the end of the day. But I will be disappointed to be like, dude, you saw the reception, you saw people's comments and criticisms, you saw their reasoning, and you still decide to keep leaning into Gen AI. That's kind of weak. Now, why is it a big deal? Okay. The thing with Gen AI is that it takes jobs away from people that have learned those skills and creates a very difficult creator economy in the thumbnail space, right? And eventually that will bleed into video creation in general, and it will just hurt the creative field. What do I mean by that? Well, if more and more people keep using Gen AI to create thumbnails, big channels like Rev's, 3 million plus subscribers, like I said, the blueprint, it sets a standard for new and aspiring creators or current creators that is acceptable. So then those creators are less inclined to pay a thumbnail editor or creator to make their thumbnail. Then what happens is, because thumbnail editors are struggling to find work because so many people are relying on Gen AI, they probably put their rates up. Then it becomes more expensive. If you are already paying an editor, then you are then forced to pay more. As a creator with 3 million subs, probably not the biggest deal. As a creator with 50,000 subs, it probably becomes a bit of a deal because a thumbnail can go from costing maybe $150 to $300 to $500 to $800. For your video to make that much money back, you need to be hitting consistently 100 to 200,000 views. That's just for the thumbnail alone. To profit off of that on top of like the video production component, you'd need to be hitting 200 to 300,000. It's not a viable business model anymore. Now, there's an argument to be made that YouTube video creation shouldn't be a business, but the reality is for a lot of people it is, especially for people like Rev now, where they're coming in, clocking in and getting it done day by day. But if you're trying to build it up to a business, it becomes harder. As a passion project, it doesn't really matter too much. But what will happen is less and less people will use graphic designers to create their thumbnails, which will make thumbnail contracts and commissions more expensive. And then in turn, it will also reduce the amount of people that are editing and creating thumbnails, which will water and dilute. You end up with like a bit of a brain sap where the skills just disappear and we start to see less and less innovation, people striving to compete and make better thumbnails than others to get more views, to get more attention because everyone's just leaning into this Gen AI thing. Now, you're kind of seeing the effects of that now when you go on YouTube because like I said, even though it's Gen AI and it doesn't look good and people are reversed to it, it's still getting the views. And part of me thinks that it's because it is AI and it stands out. This is the JLove Yaps feed. I don't view a lot of YouTube, but sometimes when I'm on this channel uploading, I do. But if we go through, the recommended, I'm sure soon enough, we're going to find an AI thumbnail somewhere. I'm going to keep scrolling, but I mean, here we go. Rip your YouTube career. This doesn't look real to me, right? But it stands out whether I like it or not. Are there any other ones? Or have we got that? Nope. What else we got? Okay, here we go. Like I said, it's just a matter of time. Huge deals for hidden grails at a trading card summit, Sydney, Australia. King of the cards 2 months ago, 137K. Is this a real image? No. The kangaroo is not standing in front of the Sydney Harbour Bridge and is not jacked and the Sydney Opera House. The guy is not doing all of that in front of it, but it sticks out. Whether it looks good or not, subjective. I think most people will agree that it doesn't. But in this sea of thumbnails, right, you can't not see it. And I think that's why Gen AI thumbnails are working so effectively these days because they're catching your eye, not for the right reasons. It's the negative reason, but I think a lot of people who spend a lot of time on the internet know that negative things attract more attention than positive things. So it's like scrolling, ooh, AI, but hey, at least I'm looking at it. Now you might actually click. And so for that reason, it's working, which is why I think it's working for Rev at the moment. There's this weird acceptance of AI despite people disliking it so much that you see everywhere, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's just in Pokemon cards in general. I'm going to pop this up now as an example. And this is no diss to Stony TCG over on Instagram, who for the most part is a pretty hardcore, passionate Pokemon card collector that does it for the love of the game, right? This guy's pretty down to earth. But I saw this and I was like, oh, I mean, I should have messaged Stony being like, dude, what are you doing? That's like kind of sus, but I didn't. And maybe I will give him a heads up so he doesn't get this random surprise. I don't want people to go and brigade Stony. Please don't. It's not that at all, right? But the image is the example I want to use here. This is the Mega Rayquaza EX SAR from Storm Emeralda, okay? A lot of people didn't like that card because it's so orange and yellow and bright, and they just don't think it's a really good Rayquaza card. It's art, it's subjective, it's up for debate, right? But this image popped up on Reddit somewhere, and Sony made a video about it where the background is bluer and it's not as complicated. There's not as much going on. It's a little bit calmer. It's easy to see Rayquaza. And a lot of people looked at this and were like, oh yeah, this looks way better. Like this is much better than the original. But I have no doubt, I can't confirm it, and it's getting more and more hard to decide these days and figure it out. But I have no doubt that this is an AI edit of the original card, right? To paint a picture of what an alternative Rayquaza could look like. And a lot of people were just like, hey, this version is so much better, even though we don't know where it came from. And it's more than likely AI generated. So many people are just like, oh yeah, this is cool. I like this. 2,000 likes on this. Sony, like I said, don't shoot the messenger, right? But talking about it, I mean, I wouldn't have platformed this. I don't want that to come across as holier than thou, but it's the issue with it is that you shouldn't platform it. Another example, which is a bit more egregious, right? Where it's worse is this account. And I see this one pop up all the time, which is just like slop, right? And I mean, I'm just going to refresh it so we get to the start of it. But basically, this was before the Rayquaza got revealed in Storm Emeralda. And this is an AI edit. There was no way to confirm whether this was real or not. But given that the fact that Japanese sets, the cards don't leak from it earlier than 2 or 3 days before the set comes out, historically, that's never happened for the Japanese sets. This was way before that, or a week before. AI edit, okay? I'm pretty sure somebody worked out that this is just the stock Ken Sugimori art of Rayquaza thrown into, it's just like that's the base of the Rayquaza. And then it was most likely thrown into an image generator, an AI model to create this version of the card. But people platform this stuff still. Even though we say how much we dislike Gen AI, this stuff still gets platformed. And there's so many people, 11,000 likes. I can't imagine how many views and 750 comments with so many people saying like, I'm going to be buying a lot of this one. This is one of them ones. And there were a lot of people pointing it out, like PokeGator saying it's fake as hell. It's pretty good, but I've seen better concept arts. This card will go crazy fresh from a pack. A lot of people saying that it was fake, and then a lot of people saying stuff like, whoa, right? Even though people say how much they dislike Gen AI, even though so many people are Gen AI averse, it still gets platformed. There's an episode of The Simpsons. I don't know if you remember it. It's a Halloween episode where all the mascots come to life. And to defeat them, and then like wrecking the town, right? And to defeat them, they have to sing the song. Don't look. And the whole point of it was, if you don't look at them, they're going to go away and they'll die, right? And that's exactly what happens. They stop looking at them and then the monsters stop, and that's the end of the episode. The only way this whole Gen AI thing stops is if people stop looking at it and platforming it. But as we're seeing time and time again, and we're seeing with Rev's channel here, people keep platforming it. Therefore, it continues to thrive. It is a painful process. It's really difficult to look at over and over again. So that's what's going on with Rev and his thumbnails. Like I said, I don't think that he is a bad person. I think that he is a bit obtuse and kind of switched off to it all. I think that if he continues making these Gen AI thumbnails, it will reflect poorly upon him. And I will be disappointed, because whether you like it or not, you have this responsibility to your fans. Someone made a really great point actually on Twitter. The creator scene is the only place to ask for support and then refuse to give that same energy back. An example, paying a buddy for thumbnails. AI work all looks the same and it looks awful. And it's an incredible point. As a creator, as a YouTuber, as an influencer, you're asking so much of people. You're asking for their attention. You're asking for them to follow you, to be engaged with you, to comment, to watch the videos, right? Some to financially support, whether it's through YouTube memberships, Twitch subs, or Patreon, or donations, whatever, right? Creators ask so much of their audience, and time is very valuable. So asking for them to watch your videos is a big ask. But then when it comes to giving back, it doesn't feel like that happens too much. In Rev's defense, this is the point where he now needs to respond and give back to his audience. They are asking of him to do better, okay? And again, like I said, it's not terrible what he's done, but they're asking for him to do better. They're asking for him to stop using Gen AI. They're asking for him to just pay a thumbnail creator. I can tell you, as a small mid-level creator, it's scary trying to find somebody to make a thumbnail for your channel, because it's risky. You are paying the money, right? So it's a financial risk, right? The last time I did a commission for a thumbnail, I think it cost me 400 Australian dollars, or about 250 US, right? It's not the end of the world, but it's a lot of money when the video has to make 80,000 views to break even on just the thumbnail, okay? It's a big jump for a creator to trust somebody else with their baby. The video's success hinges on the thumbnail drawing the attention of the viewer. And so if it doesn't, then you're now compromising the creator's time and the video and anybody else who worked on the video. So it can be scary. However, at Rev's channel size of 3 million plus, he has the capital to pay whatever he needs to find that person. It is hard to find a good editor to work with, YouTube thumbnail editor. It requires a different set of skills to work with somebody else, managerial skills that you might not have unless you came from that field or you learned them on the job or on the spot. And that is hard, but it's meant to be hard. And that's why content creation is hard and pays so well, because it is a difficult job to do. It's more than just sitting in front of a camera, especially when you're managing other people. So at Rev's scale, you can just throw money at the problem until you fix it. You can find an editor. They are definitely out there who can just match the style, or somebody who can look at least this Gen AI, selection of thumbnails that obviously is working, and say to them, okay, this style's working, but we just can't be using Gen AI and I want to pay you to make thumbnails like this that can be as effective, if not more. And that is totally doable at Rev's level. It just takes effort, which is why I say define Rev by his response to the situation and what he does next, rather than the fact that he has used Gen AI. You don't get the response without the dogpiling and the criticism. So it's an unfortunate reality of the internet is that for there to be a response, there needs to be, it is usually reactive instead of proactive responses on the internet. It's just how it goes. But the time for dogpiling is past. Don't get personal. I've seen some pretty nasty stuff and like examples of thumbnails people have made that involved his family, and you just don't want to be doing that. I wanted to find them, but I think they got deleted. Time for dogpiling and hate is over. Let's move on and try and be a little bit better. I know it's like super preachy, but it is how it is. Because otherwise, like I said, the thumbnail creation climate space it will devolve into degeneracy and purely Gen AI, and it becomes really difficult. An example, right? This tweet here from PokeHex, it was a response. They said, I don't see the big deal about someone using technology to their advantage. Rev stated he's always designed his own thumbnails. Using AI is just like another tool under their belt for assistance. AI is disrupting industries just like previous technology revolutions always have. Funny enough, Siri isn't AI. AI is going to replace jobs though, while creating others. It helps a ton of small creators who make nothing from videos be able to compete with the big players. That's just one small aspect of AI. Now, PokeHex has me blocked because I've gotten into him about something else on Twitter before because it was stupid. And I think this is like a really poor, I'm trying to be like more wholesome, but I'm not going to. This is just a really dumb, stupid take because especially this bit here, it helps a ton of small creators who make nothing from videos be able to compete with the big players. This is such a short-minded, this is such a short-sighted take in general. I understand where they're coming from because if you're an aspiring creator, it's like, oh, making thumbnails is hard. I have to learn this new skill. I'll just use Gen AI and then I'll get my video up faster. Yes, I've jumped the hurdle and now my video is up and I can continue growing my channel. Or I need to make an image for my rip and ship stream on whatnot or whatever, right? I'll just use Gen AI. And that's why they're all Gen AI, because they want to spend as little as time as possible getting better at whatever it is that they're doing. Yeah, you can do it and it's there, but is it good? No. Are people going to watch it? Maybe. But is it going to be a fruitful view? Probably not. What do I mean by that? Okay, there's this concept in the YouTube and creator world called thumbnail confirmation, or it's thumbnail satisfaction, right? Sorry. He goes to explain a new topic and he doesn't even know how to explain it. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, if I go to my channel and we look at some of my videos and some of the more popular ones, basically it's the concept that the thumbnail intrigues the viewer enough for them to click on it, and then the video satisfies them enough and confirms whatever the thumbnail sold. As an example, I'm going to use this video here, the sad reality of selling Pokemon cards. Now, this video got 119,000 views, which is really good for my main channel, which only has, which has 38,000 subscribers, which is a lot of subscribers, right? But the video got 3 times as many subscribers as views, which is good. Why? Well, the video was good. It was a great edit. Thank you again, Blendy TV, for the edit. We worked very hard on that one. But the thumbnail was pretty catchy too. The thing about the thumbnail though is that it wasn't real. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. I didn't use Gen AI. I actually used a lot of skills that I built up over the years, both making videos, creating thumbnails, and seeing other channels' thumbnails and videos to make this thumbnail. What do I mean by that? Well, this person here, they are in the video, right? So it's important that whatever's in the video thumbnail is in the video so that it delivers, okay? This person does exist. This is just text, so we can turn this off for now. But the rest of the image as well, like these cards are in the video, but this specific pose of my hand happened at home in my little studio here where I took a photo of them. The cards do show up in the video and the cards are discussed in the deal that happens in this video, but it's not the way that the thumbnail presents, but it is kind of. What do I mean by that? All right, well, if I turn my hands off and this off, you end up with this background here, but this is actually a second layer, basically. I just copied the cabinets from this image and then I brightened a little bit, added a little bit of a Gaussian blur, added a bit of a saturation so that overall it pops a little bit more when you look at the thumbnail. It's a subtle little effect, but it evidently works. But then the rest of it, well, if I turn this layer off, you end up with the base image and there's a blur effect there. This is the original image, right? But if I bring this back down, this is actually what it looks like. I've grabbed this from this stall right? And reversed it and zoomed it. Okay, fine, whatever. But where's the guy go? Well, he's not actually in the picture. And that's because that scene, specific one, comes from this different event, which happened like 4 months later in Sydney. The video happens in Melbourne. That guy's not in the video. This is Pokemon Steven. This guy's gone. He's retired. He's got nothing to do with the video that I made, but he's in the thumbnail. Why? Well, the original version of this thumbnail is, where is the fella? The source of the fella in this image is actually this image here. This is from the video. This is the vendor stall from the video, but it looks nothing like what was in the thumbnail because I didn't think that this was an effective enough image. The background was kind of poor. It looks like something out of the back rooms. The cabinet doesn't have Pokemon cards in it, even though this was a Pokemon card purchaser and the video is about Pokemon cards. It's got sports cards in it. I didn't think that would be catchy enough. And it was kind of hard to work them into the video, into the thumbnail that is, despite them being in the video. So what I did instead was I just grabbed another video that I had, another setting, and then I just put them in and bang, you end up with this thumbnail. Now, if I had just gone, hey, Gemini, make a thumbnail based on this and put the guy here and put the cards here and then whatever, and it spat something out, I wouldn't have learned any of those tricks. I wouldn't have been able to make this kind of thumbnail. And it's very likely that this video here wouldn't have gotten 120,000 views. The video was still good, but the video may have died because the thumbnail wasn't good. I can say that with confidence that Gen AI thumbnails will not get you the same amount of views as a thumbnail that you create yourself. And so this kind of take here where it kind of opens up the space to more creators because making thumbnails becomes easier is really short-sighted. Yeah, you get your video up, but the view that you get from a Gen AI click that doesn't actually satisfy the viewer when they click on the video and watch for 10 seconds is not the same as someone who clicks on the thumbnail because it was good and then stays to watch the video. It's the equivalent of what I'm trying to say basically is if someone clicks and only watches 30 seconds, that view is still a view, but it's not a good view. But if someone clicks and watches 15 minutes of a 30-minute video, that's fantastic. And you only really get that when you make the thumbnails yourself. All right, as for the lines between the use of Gen AI getting blurred further and further. So when I make thumbnails for my videos, you will notice that sometimes I look a little bit uncanny. There are different examples. For example, this one. This is a PNG that I've edited, right? Where I look zooted. It's like an old term, but that's what people said at the time, right? It's like zooted JLove, right? I don't have crystal clear green eyes like this out of an anime. My eyes aren't that white. My skin isn't that saturated and plump, but in this image, I made it look like that because for some reason, this Mr. Beast effect works. You know, if you go and have a look at Mr. Beast's channel, you'll see, yeah, it's Mr. Beast, but he's like cleaned up a lot. You know, his teeth are really white, even though he does have white teeth. His eyes are very white. He looks very clean. There's no blemishes on his skin. Maybe his skin is looking that beautiful these days. I don't know, right? But the point is the images are slightly touched up. Whether or not that's somebody doing that manually in, you know, Canva or Photoshop, or they're using Gen AI to do it, I don't know. But what I'm saying is the lines between what is and isn't acceptable are getting further and further blurred comes from that because when I make these images, you'll look here, this is a green screen image I've taken that is probably going to be the thumbnail for this video. And I haven't doctored it or edited it yet, right? Because it's a boring process and it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. But I could probably do it in 60 if I use Gen AI. This here though is an example of a template that I use in a lot of the JLove Yaps and VODs channel thumbnails where I have edited the picture because this is the edited version, right? But the version on the right, the version on the right, this one is the original. And you can see my face doesn't look as clean. It doesn't look as saturated. There's not as much contrast. You know, the hair looks a little bit more defined. It looks a bit darker, which you may think that makes me look a little bit more manly, right? But basically what I'm saying is the image on the left, I think anyway, looks cleaner than the image on the right. And so I will use this instead of, I will not use this one. I will use this one. However, I can either do this myself in Photoshop, which takes 20 or 30 minutes, or I could probably just save this PNG and then upload it into an AI model and have it spit back the cleaned up Mr. Beastified version for me that I can then use in my video thumbnail. Is that acceptable? Would you, the viewer, accept that? Or would you think that is a bad use of generative AI? Am I hurting the space if I'm just doing it myself, but saving myself 20 or 30 minutes? Because ultimately that is what Rev is doing. I don't think he's paying somebody to make those Gen AI thumbnails. I think he's just using it to maybe turn his thumbnail creation process, turning it from maybe an hour long thing into like a 15-minute long thing so he can go and spend the rest of his time with his 4 kids and his family, right? Who can blame him? Time is fickle and you don't know how long you're here for and you want to spend as much time with your family. Obviously, for the reasons I've explained, using generative AI is negative, but we're not going to rehash that. The point I'm trying to make is these programs, Photoshop, for example, have features like that inbuilt into them. Like I could probably, and I haven't used this too often, right? But let's say I select this image here, right? Just this bit, because that's what's going to go on the thumbnail. And then I click this button here, generative fill, and I say, I don't know, it's probably going to come up with something crazy, but I'm like, clean up, and give this portrait a Mr. Beast YouTube style. It might fail because I don't know how powerful Photoshop is in this specific instance, but it is handy when you're doing other things like trying to remove text from an image or clean up certain parts of a card, which admittedly I have used before in my video creation process rather than doing it myself with like a brush tool. Is that a good use or bad use? I don't know. You tell me. You might think less of me now. Holy. Okay. Well, you could use that. All right. You could use that. Would I use that? Probably not. Maybe that was a really bad example. That's not selling the point that I'm trying to sell. But let's try another one. Let's say I want to make my eyes purple instead of, that's fucking scary, dude. That's my sleep paralysis demon. Make the eyes blue. Okay. It's going to come up with something. I think this is better when you're trying to edit images and clean up certain little things rather than completely generate random shit like that. But I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind that there are other models that can do better than what Photoshop is spitting out. But this is what I mean when I say it's getting standardized. It's going to shoot out something. It's probably going to be bad and not sell the point I'm trying to make. Okay, well, not too bad. I reckon you could probably use that in the thumbnail. But now my eyes are blue, right? You can cycle through some other ones. I think I like that one better. That one's not too bad. I don't know why it's got me looking up, like I'm looking up at something, but yeah, I could fiddle with the thumbnail to make that work and put like the card or the text that I'm looking at up above me and it would work. The point I'm trying to make is there are these little shortcuts now in video, in image editing and even in video editing software now as well. So it's becoming difficult to draw a line on what is and isn't acceptable in the thumbnail creation process. I still believe in making them manually yourself, using what I like to call movie magic, but I can also see why people are trying to save time these days and are taking the shortcuts, especially when the software itself is providing those tools to you. And it is why, you know, when you go online, I've got this example, like, you know, this is an LGS in Melbourne and I'm just seeing stuff like this more and more because it's easy to just go make a poster with all these details and then just slap it in. Than it is to just sit there and manually do it yourself. But you'll see on these posts on Instagram, and this is just one example, that people don't like it and there is a negative response to it. 21 likes on this is AI slot. And you will see these day in, day out on whatever platform. The too long didn't read. I don't necessarily think Rev is a bad person. I don't want to come across as like a PokeRev apologist just because I know him or I've associated with him being a fellow YouTuber. I expect more from Rev. And I hope that the dog pile, now that it's all done and dusted, can turn into something a little bit more positive where he does go and pay an editor or thumbnail creator to make the thumbnails for him moving forward. If he doesn't, I will be disappointed. And I don't think that's unfair or holier than thou. I think any creator with as much of a platform and following as his owes his audience and has a responsibility to set a positive example. And it's not hard, especially when you have such a following that supports you financially and your family. You know, the least you can do is kind of give back into the space and just come back down to earth. Not that I think that he has a big head and he thinks he's better than it. I just think that he is so detached from it. He maybe needs to act a little bit more like a creator and less like a video producer. Act actively pushing slop into the machine just to pay the bills. I'm not a generative AI apologist. I find it really difficult to navigate the use of anything, any editing tool these days when it makes generative AI so, I guess, attractive in the sense that it saves you time, but also so in your face. And you don't know whether some of these tools you're using are trained on AI models. And I think now it's safe to assume that almost all of them are. And so the only way to actively avoid them is to just not use them at all. But that puts you at a disadvantage as a creator, because then it means other people that are using them that aren't getting criticized because the audience isn't recognizing it are in essence getting ahead of you because they're able to do more. And that can be a really frustrating thing as somebody who's trying to build a channel and build something out of it, which is why it's probably important to just keep doing things, especially like content creation and video production and YouTube in general, as something you just do for the love of the game. So it doesn't become too serious and you don't end up in these predicaments. Anyway, something that I just want to talk about, and I feel like I could keep talking about, so I might talk about this a little bit over at twitch.tv/OKJLUV. I'll put videos like this up on the JLove Yaps channel every now and then, probably more often than not, especially if you guys like them. If there's specific topics you guys want to hear me talk about, just let me know below. And then go check out the main OKJLUV channel where we put all the big fancy produced videos that have a little bit more effort into them. I took this in 2 takes. It took me a little bit of warming up because I haven't done it for a while. Anyway, thanks so much for watching here, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you watch. You guys are awesome. Thanks for the support. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.